The movie starts with Tim describing himself and his family to us. He was always too tall, too thin, or too orange, and his mother was unusually unsentimental, and his father was a former university professor who now enjoys his free time reading and playing table tennis, and his sister Kit Kat was a free-spirited, quirky person, and lastly, there was his uncle who forgets things, and though it's not mentioned in the movie, this dude actually has Alzheimer's. The family loved routine and would always go to the beach and have tea every day. Tim's parents host a New Year's Eve party, and Tim sees a girl that he likes, and although they have awkward conversations, the woman also likes him back, and when everybody counts down to midnight, the woman leans in to kiss him, but he gets nervous and instead shakes her hand and wishes her a happy new year. The next morning, Tim meets with his father, and his dad informs him of a big family secret that his own father shared with him when he turned 21. He then reveals that the men in the family have the ability to travel through time. Tim obviously thinks that his dad is joking and ignores him, but his dad assures him that it's true. Tim then asks how it's done, and his dad tells him to go to a dark place and close his eyes and clench his fists tight and think of the exact moment that he wants to go to, and he'll be able to time travel to the exact moment. He adds that there are limits to his time traveling, as he can only go to moments in his own life and can't, for example, go back and kill Hitler. He then goes into the closet and does what his dad told him, and when he opens his eyes, he finds himself wearing the same clothes that he wore at the New Year's Eve party. He walks around with confusion and sees the woman that he liked, and he then kisses her, which she really enjoys, and Tim returns to the present and talks to his dad. They talked about what his dad did with his ability, and it's apparently reading a lot of books, and when Tim got asked what he plans to use it for, he was apparently gonna use it to get a girlfriend. That summer, Kit Kat's friend Charlotte arrives to stay with the family, and Tim is instantly attracted to her, and one day while hanging out in the garden, Charlotte asks Tim to rub sunscreen on her back. He jumps with excitement but messes up while trying to rub her back, and Tim then awkwardly runs into the house and into the closet, and he goes back to this moment, and this time he acts all cool and he does the job very well. On the last day of Charlotte's stay, Tim gets the courage to ask her out, but she tells him that he shouldn't have waited till the last minute to make a move and that he should have tried earlier, so he travels back a month and he asks her out then, but things don't go as planned, as Charlotte tells him to wait until the last night of her stay to see how she feels about him. And Tim finally realizes that no matter what he does and where he travels to, he cannot make Charlotte fall in love with him, and he decides not to try again. After the summer ends, Tim moves to London to pursue his career as a lawyer, and he moves in with a family friend named Harry, who is a playwright. He then starts work at a law firm and becomes friends with Rory. One evening, Jay, Tim's old friend, takes Tim to a restaurant where they're paired up with blind dates in a dark room. Tim spends the night talking to a girl named Mary, while Jay is with her friend Joanna, and Tim and Mary hit it off. And later the guys meet the girls outside, and Tim manages to get Mary's phone number. He returns home to find Harry angry over her failed performance at his play, where one of his actors forgot his lines on stage. Tim decides to fix the situation and travels back in time to the previous night, which pays off as he delivers his lines and everyone cheers. After the show, Tim goes to call Mary, only to see her number has disappeared from his phone. Realizing that he needs to meet her again, he rushes to the restaurant where the host tells him that Mary had already left. The next morning, Tim reads an ad with Kate Moss, and he remembers Mary talked about her when they first met. This leads him to go to a museum featuring an exhibit with Kate Moss pictures, hoping to find Mary there. He goes there for days, but with no luck, until Kit Kat comes back to help him out. Finally, Mary comes to the museum, and Tim seizes the opportunity to talk to her. He tells her that it's good to see her, but she tells him that they've never met. He then tells her that he knows her name is Mary, which only makes her more uncomfortable, and he leaves feeling embarrassed, but Kit Kat convinces him to go back and talk to her, and Tim manages to convince Mary to let him dine with her and Joanna. He joins them for lunch and learns that Mary has a boyfriend, and he asks her when she got one, and she tells him that it was a few days ago. Her boyfriend, Rupert, arrives shortly after, and Tim starts asking questions about how they met and where, which happens to be at a party Joanna threw the previous week at her home. She even gives Tim the specific address to the place, which was enough information for him to run to the men's bathroom to time travel again. Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video. Help us out by hitting the subscribe button, as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys.
And now, let's get back to the recap.
So he runs to Joanna's party in time to find Mary sitting by herself near the window, and he starts a conversation with her. At first it was awkward, but then he convinces her to leave the party so they can have dinner together. As they leave, we see Rupert entering the party, and on their date, Tim learns that Mary works for a book publisher, and after dinner, Tim walks Mary home and they kiss for the first time. She invites him inside, which obviously leads to them, doing stuff, but it doesn't go great the first time. And so he goes back in time again, which turns out to be better this time, and he tries it once more, and this time they have the best, adult session ever. And over the next few months, Tim and Mary get into a serious relationship, and he even meets her parents. One night, Tim and Rory go to watch a play, and Tim notices Charlotte there with her friend. Tim tries to avoid her, but she sees him as he was leaving, and she invites him to join her for dinner so that they can catch up. The two have a nice dinner, and they go back to her place, and she invites him inside, but Tim, seeing where this is going, tells her that he has something to do. He then runs back to his apartment and finds Mary sleeping, and he wakes her up and proposes to her, which goes really great as she says yes. Tim and Mary then visit his family, and over dinner, Tim announces to the family that he and Mary are going to get married and that they're planning to do it as soon as they can, and they're also going to have a baby. The family is overjoyed to hear the news, and the day of the wedding arrives, and even though it starts pouring rain, everything turns out fun and enjoyable for the couple. During the reception, Rory gives an awkward speech, leading Tim to time travel and pick Harry to give the speech instead. But then Harry starts making an awful speech which makes him go back to pick Jay, and Jay was just as bad as he starts to make a lot of inappropriate jokes. So this forces Tim to pick his dad as the final best man, and his dad at first gives a tame but boring speech, so he goes back in time to give a very great and emotional one. A few months later, Mary gives birth to a girl named Posey, and they eventually move into a house of their own, even though Tim states that they can hardly afford it, but he and Mary are pretty happy. A year later, on Posey's first birthday, Tim's family arrives, but Kit Kat was missing. There's a knock at the door, but it turns out to be her boyfriend and he was alone, and Tim asks about Kit Kat, and Jimmy says that they got into a fight, and she left while she was drunk to go to Tim's house alone. Tim and Mary rush to the hospital to find out that Kit Kat was in a car accident because she was drunk driving. Tim then time travels to bring Kit Kat to his house before she drives anywhere. He takes her for a walk on the beach to comfort her over her problems with Jimmy. He also reveals a secret to her and brings Kit Kat into a closet to time travel back to the New Year's Eve party where she first met Jimmy. She is just as surprised to find herself in her old clothes as Tim was at the beginning. He holds her away from walking to Jimmy, and they then see him approaching another girl, and Kit Kat realizes what a jerk Jimmy is, and she goes over to him to punch him on the face. He then takes her back to the present, and her memories have been altered, and she tells Tim that she is now with Jay. And Tim is pretty happy to see that Kit Kat is happier with Jay, and he then goes back home. But when he goes to play with Posey, he's shocked to see that his daughter is now a boy. Tim then time travels back to the day of the child's birth to meet with his father, and his dad tells him that he can't time travel before his child's birth because the sperm that fertilizes the egg is random, so the child's gender is not easily determined. Tim realizes he must undo Kit Kat's new timeline so that Posey is born, and we are taken to Kit Kat's car accident, but Tim and Mary stand beside her until she vows to break up with Jimmy and stop drinking. And during his stay, Tim mentions to her that Jay had always liked her and that she should talk to him. Sometime later, Tim and Mary have another child named Jeff, and one night they get a call from Tim's mom informing them of something really horrible. They all go back to the family's house, and Tim learns that his father was diagnosed with lung cancer. He meets with his father and learns that he only has a few weeks left, and he admits that he's been time traveling a lot to give himself more time to spend with his family and to also read a lot of books, and he also tells Tim the secret to a happy life. The first part is to go through a day normally without changing anything, but then going back in time to relive the day again, but this time with no stress and with appreciation for every moment. We are then taken to the day of the funeral. While everybody was getting ready, Tim time travels again and spends more time with his father, appreciating every moment. Sometime after the funeral, Mary tells Tim that she wants a third child, and Tim is on board, though he realizes that this means he would have to permanently let go of his father. Over the following 9 months, as Mary was pregnant with his child, Tim time travels to visit his father on a daily basis. On the 9th month, as Mary is nearly ready to deliver, Tim visits his father one last time, and they play table tennis, and his dad wins for the first time, and as a prize, Tim says that he will give him a kiss on the cheek, and from the look look on his face, his dad figures out what this means. As Tim goes over to give his father a kiss, his dad asks him to take him back one more time, and they time travel to a day when Tim was a child. They then spend the day together at the beach before saying goodbye one last time. Tim and Mary's third child is finally born, and it was a girl named Jo. Kit Kat and Jay have also gotten married, and they had a child of their own, and by this time, Tim has decided to live his life without time travel, as he believed the secret to happiness is to live every day as the day you choose to time travel to and experience every moment to its fullest. In the last scene, we see him giving a kiss to Mary as she lies down on the bed, and he then takes his children to school, and the film ends with a brief montage with most of the other characters, Rory, Harry, and Tim's mom, and Kit Kat and Joanna, enjoying their lives one day at a time. And this is how the movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave me a comment, and most of all, subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye.